All right, folks, join us now to discuss strategies to combat the dengue fever outbreak. Our Director of Health Services Planning and Integration at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Nadine Williams, and medical entomologist and manager of the Vector Control Program, Tryon Huntley Jones. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I hope all is well.
Most things are.
Yep.
Ask it.
Dr. Williams, let me start with you, because I know the ministry has declared an outbreak of dengue, and I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember too many years we've heard that there's an outbreak of dengue, and we have to. I know we had dengue. I know we lost people for all that, but I don't know if I've heard that it is as what it seems to me as big as it sounds now. Am I right?
So that's a very good question. As an outbreak really defines a situation where there is more than the expected number of persons who are affected by a particular illness. And so what we would have noted is that there is an increase in the numbers over what we call the epidemic threshold. So you're quite right in that dengue is what we call endemic. We have dengue cases all the time. Over the last few years we've had, but we have what is called a threshold above which we say there's an epidemic or there's an outbreak. And that is what is existing at this time.
I want to back up a little bit to define what is dengue. And I'm saying that because a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I have a bad flu or I have a bad fever. And then some will have a flu and say, oh my gosh, I have dengue. So explain to me what are some of the symptoms. And when we say dengue, exactly what we mean.
Right. So dengue is actually an illness or disease that is caused by a specific virus, the dengue virus. And the dengue virus is one which is spread by mosquitoes. We have a few that are spread by mosquitoes. And Mrs. Huntley-Jones is an entomologist, and any mosquito questions will certainly be, she'll be happy to answer. But with the symptoms, what we have are fever and two or more of the following. You would have just put the slide up as it relates to symptoms. So fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, muscle pain, joint pain, vomiting, diarrhea. Those are the more common symptoms of dengue.
Mrs. Huntley-Jones, I don't know if you can answer this, but getting back to my first question to Dr. Williams, that we have an outbreak now, what's the cause of that? Because the other thing that confused me a bit is because I know when we have rain, we have lots of mosquitoes. We haven't had that much rain in recent times, so why is there an outbreak going on now?
Okay, so Neville, I want to remind yourself and the audience that there are 4 serotypes of dengue. Dengue type 1, dengue type 2, dengue type 3, dengue type 4. Currently for this outbreak, we're seeing dengue type 2. The last time we saw dengue type 2 was actually in 2004, almost 13 years ago, 10 to 13 years ago. So that's the dominant dengue strain that is circulating. Because of the high susceptibility of the population now to this particular strain, that's why we're seeing an increase above the threshold of dengue at this time. So that's one of the factors that's contributing to the occurrence of the outbreak. It also must be noted that as it relates to dengue has what is a periodicity as it relates to, exceeding the outbreak. So every 2 to 3 years, possibly 4, we must expect to experience an outbreak. And there are several factors that contribute to this. Not only rainfall, but higher temperatures than normal. So if in your summer months you would have had high temperatures, it means that you would have had your mosquito populations coming through quicker than normal. So the normal life cycle of mosquitoes is about 5 to 7 days, sometimes 9 days, depending on the temperature. But when those temperatures are hot, and you would agree that our summer was extremely hot, you have the life cycle being reduced to 5 days, 6 days. So you're having more mosquito in a shorter period of time. And so the combination of the very hot summer, the with the new or the current strain that is circulating has contributed to us seeing an outbreak at this time.
Okay, and I'll stay with you, ma'am. The 1, 2, 3, 4, there is a worst one there, and is it number 1 or number 4?
Okay, so there is not really one that is worse than the other. They're just different strains of the same virus.
Okay.
What's important to note, though, is that you can, and Doc can talk much more about this, you can get dengue 4 times. You can have dengue type 1, dengue type 2, dengue type 3, dengue type 4. What is critical for our population is that once you've had an infection twice, so if you've had dengue type 1 in the past and you now contract dengue type 2, you are more predisposed to experiencing the more severe form of dengue, to having the more severe clinical manifestation.
Okay.
And so that's what's particularly interested in our population, is that we have had all 4 serotypes circulating at one point or the other. And so with every outbreak, our population is predisposed to seeing more persons coming down with the severe forms and being hospitalized, because once you've had 2 infections or more, you are predisposed to experiencing the more severe form of dengue.
Okay.
That clarifies something I was going to ask in terms of you saying we're more susceptible. I want to ask Dr. Williams, therefore, how long does the virus last in one's system, and what is the recommended treatment?
Well, thanks for that question. So the virus perhaps lasts about 14 days. In the system, it takes about 4 days after you've been bitten before you actually have the first manifestation, and that's usually fever. And then the fever usually lasts between 2 and 7 days, and it is usually that time that we say we have viremia. That means that there's a virus in the blood. And it is during that time that you're usually infectious. If a mosquito bites you, then he will be able, or she will be able to get the virus and transmit to another person. And then after that, there is the fever going down, and there is a resolution of the illness. With respect to cure for dengue, there's really no specific cure, and our management and treatment is around symptoms. So we will treat the fever, and we will treat the fever by sponging and hydrating, giving water, ensuring that persons get medication for fever like paracetamol or acetaminophen. Important to note that we do not want persons to take what we call the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So drugs that contain diclofenac or ibuprofen, stay away from those. Hydration, very important. If there's vomiting or diarrhea, you want to replace that fluid. But if it is that you have warning signs, it is important to present at a medical facility and to the hospital if severe. These warning signs will include severe persistent headache, protracted vomiting, severe abdominal pain, bleeding, because there is an aspect of the dengue disease which causes one of our blood cell types to reduce, and those are the platelets. And persons can then have bleeding, and if that is severe and prolonged, then you can have actually severe dengue with severe hemorrhage. So severe hemorrhage, any sort of situation where persons look confused, or they are feeling very, very weak, or they are fainting, they need absolutely to go to the hospital. Shortness of breath is also a warning sign. What I have listed is called the warning signs, and that is a trigger for going off to the hospital.
Final question for me, Dr. Williams, and you used the word severe about 7 times just now. And I know, unfortunately, we've lost folks because of dengue. But having said all of that, for the most part, it's a mild illness, isn't it?
Absolutely, you have that right. The majority, in fact, there are many persons who are asymptomatic. There are people with dengue who do not have symptoms, and most people will have a mild illness. In fact, it's in the order of like 0.0 something percent that you will have persons who will have a negative outcome as a result of dengue. And so for the most part, you can self-care, you can self-manage, but monitoring is a key in the management of dengue. You have to monitor yourself, see what is going on, and then if there's progression of the symptoms, then you will have to seek medical attention.
All right. I want to thank you both for taking the time out to speak with us this morning.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Keep safe.
Thank you, Director of
And
Health.
look for those breathing signs.
Yes, Director of Health Services Planning and Integration at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Nadine Williams, and medical entomologist and manager of the Vector Control Program, Shireen Huntley-Jones. Stick around. We'll be back with the Rot Olympic Sports Community Club. That's in just a moment.